Hey guys, welcome to the stream. Thank you for joining me this evening. As usual, we're just gonna hang out, and I hope you guys are all keeping safe, given the challenges that we are all facing around the globe right now. I hope you're all keeping safe and staying indoors and following all the rules and the regulations that your municipalities may have issued. Let me turn down my volume here. All right, so tonight I just wanted us to hang out. As we're all waiting for this corona situation to calm down, it's important that we all keep our sanity and not to panic, and just to follow the instructions that we've been given. Stay indoors, try to keep yourself and your family safe, look out for your neighbors, reach out to the people that you know in your community that are vulnerable. And as we hang out, we're just gonna sit out here today and we're gonna chat. And I just want to show you guys, because in the past, over the last couple of months, I've had a lot of questions about how I shoot my events and how I'm able to move from gimbals to tripod and back to gimbal, or maybe from gimbal to handheld and back to tripod. And a lot of people have had that question, and I've seen so many people come up and leave comments like that. And today I just want to go through and try to see how best I can answer some of these questions. And I also want to show you guys how I put together my rig. So as you can see right here, I have my rig taken apart into components, and we're going to go through them and take a look and see what components I'm using for this rig. So pardon me for today because my overhead rig is not really working, so I'm not going to bother with the overhead rig at all. I've tried to capture the scene as a little bit wider as much as possible so I can show you guys what I have going on here over on the desk, and hopefully you can see how I have it set up and how I rig it up so that I can go straight from camera back to gimbal, to handheld, to tripod, however you want to work. Because on a wedding day, or on any event, typical event shooting day, you want to be able to move through all of your tools that you use as quickly as possible. You don't want to spend too much time doing setups here and there, and the event is happening. So you want to be able to quickly, within 20 to 30 seconds or even 15 seconds, move from one tool to the other that you need to get the scenes that you need for that particular event. So I'll walk you guys through what happens and how I rig my equipment up for that kind of an event on a run and gun situation where I need to go from gimbal to tripod to handheld, and in between, and sometimes even to monopods and stuff like that. So I'll show you how I set that up. I'll show you my audio rig is here as well, and how I set that up today. And let me know in the chat if you have any questions, if you have any comments as well. Leave it in the chat. But I'll start off and then we can start going. Oh, but before we get started, I also want to thank you guys for your support. Over the last couple of months, this channel has seen tremendous growth, and I foresee that in the next month or so, we're going to hit 1,000 subscribers. And so I want to thank you guys who have hung out with me all this while. And I want to say thank you very much. And as part of the 1,000 subscribers celebration, I'll be giving out something to the community as well for all your encouragement, for all your support. So stay tuned for that as well. I'll announce what I'll be giving out and how you can enter to win that giveaway in the coming video. So let's get started with the rigging of this A7 III and how I set it up for gimbal work. All right, so for starters, I always start off working on my gimbal. And the reason is that once I get the gimbal piece set up and balanced, I don't have to rebalance it again whenever I take the camera out and I bring it back. So the first thing I do is to set this up for the gimbal work, right? Because that's the piece that requires the most work. You want to start off with the piece that requires the most work, because on your gimbal, you're going to have to balance the axis, all the three axes, make sure that they are stable and works fine. and you don't want to be doing that out in the field. So what I usually would do is I try to balance my gimbal the night before the event or early in the morning before I head out to do the event. And once I have that gimbal balanced, I don't really have to balance it again unless I'm changing lenses or I'm making dramatic changes to that scenario. So first off, the gimbal I'm using for this setup, it's the Gimbal S. I also use the DJI's Ronin SC sometimes. I don't use it as much these days because for my setup, which is usually the Sony A7 III with the Tamron 28 to 75 millimeter, the Gimbal S seems to work better for me, and for that reason I use the Gimbal S most of the time. So for this demonstration I'm going to use the Gimbal S, but bear in mind that it doesn't matter what camera, what equipment, what gear, what gimbal you're using. Most of these stuff that we are talking about today will apply to any setup that you use, right? So have that in mind as we go through this, and know that it does not matter your setup or what gimbal or what equipment you are actually using. You should be able to leverage all of these tips and tricks that we are going to talk about today. All right, so that being said, like I said, the first thing I do is to make sure that my gimbal is balanced. And if you know you have the Gimbal S, you realize that the plate comes in two portions, right? So you have this plate, which is the Manfrotto base plate, right? And then you have the Arca Swiss plate that goes, the Manfrotto plate sits on. So the trick that I use is that I have switched all my tripod and my monopod heads, and I have attached a Manfrotto head to them. So with that Manfrotto head attached to them, it is more easy for me to just take the split the built-in plate, right? Take this on and leave this on the gimbal, and still use the same Arca Swiss plate that comes with the gimbal that is already on the camera over to my tripod. So that's basically how what I'm using. So for this particular piece here, I would show you this piece here, and as you can see, this is a small quick release plate, Arca Swiss plate, and I put one of these adapters or quick release mounts on each of my tools that I'm going to be using. So one on my gimbal, one on sorry, not on the gimbal. On the gimbal I'm using the plate that comes with it, but one on my tripod, and also one on my monopod if I'm using a monopod for that particular shoot. So what I do is first go through it and balance the gimbal. I'm not really going to go through how I balance the gimbal. If you want to learn how to balance the gimbal, I've got a couple of videos already on my channel on that piece. So I'm just going to do a quick balancing. I'm not aiming for perfection with this because I just want to do a quick demonstration here. All right, so the first things first, I'm balancing the top axis. Done. I'm going to do this one here. So let me tighten that a little bit. I'm going to do the front to back with that. All right. And right here seems to be about okay. Let me do the roll quickly. Using this right here, shift. Right, let's take a look at this, do a little bit of adjustments here and there, right? And then we can take a look at this one right here. So let's see. Yeah, it's way off. But basically you get a piece, right? That's what the goal is. The goal is to balance your setup on the gimbal first, So if this is how you're going to use it on the gimbal, balance it out first on the gimbal. Now, once you have this balanced on the gimbal, you can then take the quick release and just release this piece here, and now go to the tripod. Now, this whole rig, I want to show you the whole brain behind the rig. So let me just get this off the tripod quickly. And there's a lot of components here. I'll walk you guys through every one of them easily. Let's just disconnect everything so we can go through the whole rigging process. Right, so first off, so this is a couple of components. So at the bottom here, you can see I have the base plate with two 15mm rods, and then I have the Acca switch plate that I talked about, and at the top here is my power system. So the power system right now, it's two pieces that I'm using. The first one is this quick plate here. So this plate, basically it's a MPF battery adapter to the V-mount batteries. So this plate allows me to take two of the regular Sony MPF batteries and put two and adapt it to any MPF. Sorry, what I mean is this plate here allows me to take two Sony MPF batteries and adapt those batteries to be used as V-mount batteries. So the bottom here is a V-mount plate from Usbc. And this plate, the reason why I chose this particular plate is the fact that it has a lot of outputs for me to use. So I wanted a scenario where I can power almost everything that I'm using from just these battery set, right? And so if you look on the side here, I have a USB port, a D-tap, and also a 7.2 volt out and a 12 volt out. So the 12 volt out I usually send to my monitor. The 7.2 volt, you have two options. You can send that to your camera with a dummy battery like this. So I sometimes use this dummy FZ100 battery. But most of the time what I do is I don't use the FZ100 battery, and I'll show you when I'm putting everything together what I do. So in place of that, I use the 7 volt to actually power on this unit right here. And this unit right here is the Tascam Dr-60d Mark II. The reason why I use this is because if you look on the side here, I have two full XLR mic inputs, and then you also have your 3 and 4 inputs being your regular quarter pin jack for the regular small microphones. And so this allows me to have basically 4 inputs and also be able to record safety tracks of those inputs. So as you all know, audio is very important when it comes to shooting video. Audio is also maybe 50% as important as the video footage itself. So if you have a good footage but your audio sucks, it's really not good. So you want to have a balance between good audio, good video in terms of quality. And this allows me to be able to record multiple sources of audio at the same time using an SD card right here. And the good thing is that this thing can also be USB powered, right? So what I do is one of my outputs from my my V-mount battery adapter, it's going in there, powering this unit up so I don't run out of battery. So in all, this is the whole kit. I'm using this quick adapter plate, this plate for the V-mount plate. I'm using the mount here to adapt this to a tripod, and also the quick release plate for the Acca switch style thing. So basically that's going to go on the tripod. And by the way, this is not the tripod I use for gigs. My main tripod is still on my camera over there that's shooting me right now. So that's there. I'm just using this for demonstration. Assuming this is your tripod, you can go handheld. And I'll show you how I do that after I put everything together. So that's the first set that we have in here. And now I take this quick release plate or adapter that takes my 2 NPF batteries and converts them. And now what I do is I take my audio unit, my audio recorder, my field recorder, and as you can see here, I have this little small rig adapter on it. And what that is that it allows me to mount that onto the 15mm rods right at the edge here. And I tighten that out, right? And so now this is my monitor, right? Being powered by a dummy NPF battery. So I have this dummy NPF battery that goes to the monitor, right? And this monitor also have the quick release railing system, and it goes right on top of my cage here. Right, so I have the monitor rigged, and this whole thing now just will come in and sit in right here. And I just tighten it up. So there we go. Let me take this whole thing off the tripod and then we can rig it. And that's how easy it is to go handheld. So whenever I'm ready to go handheld, here we go. I'm going handheld. And as you can see, it's really balanced, right? Because I put this in the front here, is giving it a little bit more weight in the front. And the battery system here, or the power system I have right here, okay, there we go. Right, also gives a little bit of weight in the back. And then you can run the cables. This will go into the 12 volts on the side. And this cable here is what I'm using for the audio unit. So that's going to come out of my 7.2 volts out, and we'll go right here into the power port of the audio unit. The last piece that I'm using, it's USB 3 or USB-C cable. And the reason why I'm using the USB cable is that for the A7 III, even though I could power the camera also from this same unit, I don't want to, because of the fact that I want to be able to have the freedom of just disconnecting the monitor, taking the camera, putting it on the gimbal, right? And when I put it on the gimbal, this battery unit, it's not there to power it up. So what I'm doing is I'm leaving one FZ100 battery in the camera, and its whole duty is just to power up the camera. But while I am on the tripod, I trickle charge that battery from the USB out using this USB-C cable, which then plugs right in here. and that keeps the whole thing powered, right? So whilst it's powered on, the battery will still be trickle charging that battery that is in the camera. And when I put it on the gimbal with the cable connected, the control cable for the gimbal connected, I am also getting some kind of trickle charging from the gimbal on that battery as well. With this setup, I have noticed that I can run all of these, including the monitor, for up to 5 hours. The only time I have to change is probably I probably go through maybe 2 batteries on the Sony batteries for a full wedding day, right? So I'm talking about a 10-hour to a 12-hour day. I go through 2 of the batteries with the trickle charging. If you don't need to go to a gimbal and you're just using handheld and tripod, then you're good, because you can just power off the battery as well and the camera as well using this dummy battery, and that will give you about 5 hours of continuous power for all of that equipment being powered with this system here. So that's my quick and cheap solution for powering my camera, gimbal, and monitor. Right, I'm just going through that and adapting 2 Sony MPF batteries, which are really relatively cheap, so you can actually compare to the actual V mounts. My goal is to eventually maybe invest in a proper V mount battery. However, for now, this system here works really well, and it's actually really reasonably priced because of the fact that this whole 2 of these batteries you can probably get for like 30 to 40 bucks. So it's pretty reasonable. I'll put links in the description after the stream to where you can get some of the batteries, where you can get these 2 adapters or the 2 plates that I'm using right here, as well as the plate I'm using to adapt the MPF batteries, and also to the cage and some of the small rig components that I'm using for this rig. So basically, there we have it. You can just go. We did a little bit of cable management and I'm working on that, but for now you can just simply take this and off you go in handheld scenario, and then you can quickly just, whilst you're still on the tripod, you can quickly just loosen this up, get the monitor out of the way, just loosen this quickly, get your camera, disconnect this USB cable, clamp that back in, just like that, and within 30 seconds or within 10 seconds, as you can see, you're now on a gimbal and ready to shoot on a gimbal, not having to rebalance. So that's basically how I'm setting up to be able to go from gimbal to tripod and back. The other thing is that I need to work on is also to be able to find a way to attach my monitor to the gimbal once I go. And for that to be possible, I might have to stop using this dummy battery and actually maybe put a real battery, 1 MPF battery in here. And as you can see, I already have the rail in here. I just gotta find the extension plate and be able to hook this monitor up right correctly on the monitor when I go to the on the gimbal when I go in. But I don't want to mount it right now. I will look at that if I really want to, but I don't really like to add a monitor on this most of the time. I just usually make do with the back screen, or sometimes I just attach the phone holder and monitor off my phone using the image transmission module. So that's how I set this up. And for the audio solution, to talk a little bit more about it, I use the Rode Wireless Go system. And what I do with that is whenever I get to the venue, I talk to the DJ and I see what the DJ has. And I take a line out from the DJ's soundboard into the Rode This is a little hack that I use, so you may want to pick it up, and that's fine. I take the audio from the DJ soundboard and I put it into the Rode Wireless Go and the receiver, the transmitter part of it, right? Instead of where you normally would put a lavalier mic, I put the sound from the DJs or the mixer board into that. Tune it, make sure wherever the source is coming from the board has a way to be able for me to control and adjust it to get a proper input. And then I connect the transmitter or the receiver, I mean, onto this rig right here and plug it right in here. At the same time, I also use this mic that I'm using, the shotgun, and have it also mounted and plugged into one of the XLR ports. So I have two sources of audio coming in to here and getting recorded at the same time. And occasionally also I would use the smaller Zoom. Sorry, no, I think it's it's a Zoom H1, and have a lavalier on that one tacked to the groom for the ceremony, so I can get some of the vocals and the stuff that is the speeches and or the ceremony voiceovers right from the groom's mic. So I have three sources of audio at any point in time to work with, and what that allows me to do is to be able to pick the best source out of that, because you never really want to end up at the wedding and come back home and not have proper audio to work with. So that's one of the things that I always look out for audio, to make sure that I have good audio coming in so I can have something to work with in post and use it however I want and mix it up however I want to. So some of the sounds, I will pick up some of the ambient sounds based on the shotgun that is on the camera. I'll pick up some of the ambient sounds in the room, whereas I get a clean sound from the DJ's console coming into the Tascam as well. And so you have a lot of different audio sources, and then you can match them and mix them up however you want in post. So that's basically how I rig my setup, from gimbal to tripod and back to gimbal, if you would say, or also to be able to use your monopod if you want to. So that's the basic simple setup that I use. If you have any questions, leave them in the chat or in the comments, and I will take a look and I will get back to you guys. But basically that's how I set it. So let's go over it again. These are the components I'm using. I'm using this small rig handle that has the tilt, so I can tilt back and forth the monitor, and it also has this railing thing here, the NATO rail right at the end of that bottom here. And so that NATO rail allows me to then mount my camera right onto allows me to mount this monitor right onto my cage here, which also has a NATO railing kind of track at the top. And so my monitor sits right on, and there you go. That's one set of it. All right, and you can actually just go like this with a battery in here and handheld like that and shoot, but you can also build upon this. So the building upon this is going over it here and getting this railing system. This is a 12mm rails, two of them, and the railing base plates here as well, with the Aka Swiss plate adapter sitting on top here. And what that allows me is to be able to use that same Aka Swiss plate that comes with the Weberless, and bring that same plate over, right? Mount this system here, have my cables running over to whatever I need, and whenever I need to get back to the gimbal, quickly remove all of the cables, unlock this one piece here, bring it back in, take out this monitor, right, and be able to easily get over and bring it back inside, right? So that's a quick way to get it going. And if you need to go handheld completely with the battery system and the monitors and everything on it, then you can still do that by just doing it quickly, releasing the whole plate from the bottom here, right? And there you go. You have everything with your monitor on the top, right? And there you go. This may look like overkill for a lot of people, and I get it. But the reason why I like to rig up my A7 III this way, it's because with this rig, when I go handheld, there is enough weight for me to be able to have steady movement. So I get smoother footage, right? Because I have a couple of mountain places, and even if I'm not using my second hand and I'm just using one hand, as you can see, it's pretty balanced based on the weight at the front and the weight at the back. And it solves the problem really well for me, and I can power all of these systems if I want to from these 2 NPF batteries, which has been adapted to the V-mount battery plate with 3 outputs. And I still have the D-tap out, which I can use if need be. Let me take a look. I think there was a comment in the chat. It's from Exalted One. He says, I attach my monitor to the side of the Weebill lab. Yes, that's good. So there are times where I use a small what do you call it, the small ball head thing, and I attach my monitor directly to the Weebill S right here, and you can do that too sometimes. So Exalted One is asking, what do you think of the Atomos monitor? Oh, perfect. So this monitor I have had for about a year, and I love them. So the thing is this is not just the monitor, right? This monitor also allows you to be able to record directly to them. The only thing is that with the A7 III, sometimes if you are shooting in 4K and you send your monitoring with this Atomos, this back of your screen here for the camera screen may go blank, but there is a fix. So if you're using the Atomos to monitor and you're also recording to the Atomos, then you can fix that issue by just changing the setting in the camera to only record to the Atomos. So if it records to the Atomos only without recording internally, then you don't lose phase detect and you don't lose the back of the screen going blank. That's the only downside, but that's not really a problem with the Atomos. It's basically on how Sony's HDMI out implementation is working. But all in all, I love this little monitor here because it's good for getting perfect exposure. There's a lot of tools built in that you don't have on your Sony natively, and this helps to make your exposure, gauging your exposure out in the run and gun situation a lot more user friendly, except that it's a little pricey compared to the other monitors. But then again, you know that you're getting a recorder and a monitor, not just a monitor, right? And says, yes, that's exactly where I place it. Thanks. Awesome. Thank you. Yes, exactly. That's what I had. I have the feel good 4K monitor, but been thinking of getting the Atomos. Thanks. Yeah, if you can afford the Atomos, it's the way to go. Not just because of the features that is built in, but you also future-proof, from what I can say, future-proof yourself. It can do 4K up to 60 frames. But then also you also have that the key thing is that you're not limited to recording to your SSD, your SD cards, right? You're recording to this recorder on an external hard drive, bigger space, and the codec that you're getting out there is easier to work with than the codec that you've been recording into the Sony. So that's the thing. So when I come home, I just take my SSD out, plug in the reader, plug into my computer, and I can edit off this SSD. So what I have done in the past is the Atomos comes with one caddy, right? So if you're gonna get the Atomos, my recommendation will be to get, there is a pack of extra 5 caddies that you can get for I think $40. And if you get those, then it's more meaningful, because for me, as you can see, I have here, this is 4 of the caddies that I have, right? And so when I come back, each one of them has a terabyte, 1 terabyte drive in there. For some of them, I don't really use. For most of them, well, at least these 3 are SSD drives. This one is just a regular hard drive, but it still works depending on the quality you're recording with on the Atomos, right? And what I do is when I come home, I don't have to worry about getting the files off it, because I still have these other 3 for other gigs that I can go out and use this on, and I can edit my footage right off this, back it up, edit, and then when I'm done with it, archive it and clean out this drive for the next job. So it's always important to get extra caddies if you're getting the Atomos and you're going to use that for recording. All right, so that's about it for tonight. Thank you guys for hanging out with me. Unless there are any other questions, then that's it. But I just wanted to quickly show you guys how I go through and I rig my stuff up, so that I can easily just take the pieces that I need at any point in time during a typical wedding day, without having to spend too much time on rebalancing my gimbals or trying to adjust for that and adjust for this. So I can just quickly grab this, take this handle off, grab the camera, put it on the gimbal, take it off the gimbal, bring it back down here, and just get this, going without having to fuss with it so much, right? Because other than that, most of the time when you go from a gimbal to a tripod, if you haven't set it up properly, then the challenge you run into is that every time you bring it back to the gimbal, you're gonna have to fiddle with the gimbal, trying to balance it so it's not shaky, and it's a nightmare. So I do this so that I can always simply just swap between gear on the fly, and I can't have to do anything. The next question says, you mentioned about there being a difference between the codec being recorded in the Atmos and internally on the A7III. Oh, yes. So, okay. So what I mean by the codec is that when you're recording on the A7III, you're recording on H624, right? H264 codec, right? Which is compressed. So it's compressed, and when you bring it onto your computer and you are editing it, because the file is so compressed, to keep the file size small, it is harder on your computer to be able to, when you're editing, to scrub through. So if you're having issues with, especially with 4K video, where you realize that your computer is struggling to scrub through on your timeline and it's pausing when you are playing back, that's usually what the problem is, because the codec, the H264 codec, is highly compressed just to reduce the file size, right? Whereas when you go to the Atomos, you're either recording in ProRes or you're recording in DNx HD, and those 2 codecs are meant for editing, so they are not compressed as much, even though the file sizes are bigger. So if you record ProRes or DNx HD on the Atomos, the file sizes are bigger than what you normally will get from the internal recording on the A7III. But that's because the file that you're recording on the Atomos is not that heavily compressed, and it's easier for your computer to handle those files than it is for them to handle the compressed H264 files that are coming natively out of the Sony A7III. So yeah, if you're on Apple, then you're looking at maybe recording in ProRes, right? Because ProRes works really well on Apple computers. If you're editing on Windows like I do, I just shoot in DNx in DNx instead of ProRes. So I shoot in DNx HD. You can shoot up to 4K, and based on the codec and the compression levels, right? So for example, let me just power on this, and I can show you some of the levels of compression. Oh, I can't bring in a signal because I'm using my HDMI for the stream. I don't have one handy right now. So, oh, actually here, since my overhead rig is not working, let's use that to output something for now. Okay, so I'm going to use this short cable and I'm going to take HDMI in here. And let's go to the A7 III right now and take HDMI out. Just a quick demonstration so you can see. Okay. Oh. Come on. Do I have the right end? Yes, I do. It's just this floppy things on the A7 III always gets in the way sometimes. I've always wanted to cut off these floppy things on the battery doors on the A7 III. They are so annoying. But I just leave them there for fear of losing my warranty. So, yep. Oh, I was putting that in here. Perfect. All right. So, I'm outputting from the A7 III. Let's see what we get in. Right in here. Okay, so I hope you can see the screen, but there we are. Because my overhead is not working, so I'm gonna keep it this way. But as you can see, once I put in the Atomos, the caddy, and by the way, the caddy is hot swappable, so you don't really need to power the monitor off before inserting or removing the hard drive. As long as you're not recording to it, you can always remove it. And if I go through the codecs, I hope you can see. I know it's kind of far, but you can see right here I have DNX HR, and if I'm recording in DNX, you have a couple of compression levels. So you can do the ProRes, and in ProRes you also have a couple of options. Oh, ProRes RAW. I didn't know I could record ProRes RAW from the Sony. That's something new. I know it's only the Nikon Z's that outputs ProRes RAW. So I'm not sure why I'm seeing this, but I'll take a look at that later. If that's actually a possibility. Well, I don't know why it's giving me ProRes RAW option, but there we go. So if you come in here, you have the ProRes RAW, and then you have DNX HR, which I use because I shoot on Windows. So if I'm on Windows and I'm shooting ProRes HR, then you have a couple of compression levels. So you have high quality compression, high HQ, DNX HQ, then you have HQX, and then you have LB, and then SQ. So based on each of those compression levels, it will tell you at the top here how much time your SSD can take. So as you go and compress the file further, your time will decrease, right? Or your time will increase if you go to a lower level of compression. But get this straight, that it doesn't matter what level of compression you're doing on the DNX HR, even if you're using the highest compression, which will be the probably the SQ, the standard quality, or the LB, whichever one you're using, the file sizes will still be bigger than what you have from the A7 III natively, and will still not be as compressed as the H.264 codec that is being outputted on the Sony. I hope that answers your question, Exalted One. And I think I'm gonna cut out the stream right here, since there are no other questions. And thank you for hanging out with me today. I hope you guys are all staying safe and keeping your family safe from all this corona madness that is going on right now. Stay indoors, stay safe, and I will see you in the next video. Leave your comments below, leave your questions below. If you have anything that you need more explanation on, don't hesitate to reach out, and I will try my best to answer those as much as possible. And like I said, in the next couple of videos, I will let you guys know what I'm planning to give out to those of you who have been loyal and have been supporting this channel. We're almost at 1,000 subs, so when we get to the 1,000 subs, I'm thinking of giving out something. It won't be sponsored, it will be from my own pocket, so I will want to give out something and thank you guys. If you guys want to follow me on Instagram, check me out. There's a link. I will leave a link in the description. My Instagram is ebafor6, so EBAAF. Sorry, it's EBAFFOUR6. I will leave that in the comment as well, and you can follow me, check out some of my work on Instagrams as well. And I'm trying to set up something where I can go live on Instagram from time to time. I like to do the behind the scenes of my edits. If you haven't checked out my last 2 streams, you can check them out. I did live editing, and I'm trying to see if I can get that on Instagram as well, so those of you guys who are following me on Instagram can also enjoy from that. But I'll see you guys in the next video. Stay blessed as usual, and don't forget to keep creating. God bless.